So Bud Light is a zombie brand. Ever since that ill-fated partnership with the now infamous, TikTok influencer, their value has been spiraling downward ever since. But there's some additional devastating news out there, some things that we need to get into, and no one is really talking about it because I don't think a lot of people are even aware. We have some indication about why things are going the way that they're going, why some of these decisions were made, and maybe why Ms. Heinerschieded was saying the things she was saying. Here we go. It's a zombie brand. Brains. You get it. Okay, this is going to be a longer-ish video for me, but trust me, it's going to be well worth it. You need to stick it out to the end to grasp all of the extent of Bud Light's troubles and why they may have made the mistakes that they made. It's a story worth sharing, actually, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so, because this is what I do. I look at these things from the business side of the equation, mostly entertainment, also stories like this. So please take a moment, hit that subscribe button, and hit that like button too. That always helps. So we're on our way to reaching 10K subscribers, and your support means the world to me. So let's dive into this madness, and let me tell you, it is madness. Now, AB Inbev, of course, is the parent company of Bud Light. We've talked about that many times. They seem to be making some universally questionable decisions at this point in time. And, well, actually, technically for months. Now, this is all because of their quest to attract an audience that may not even exist. You've heard that a lot from a lot of different commenters, if you would prefer. And they're pouring just absolutely heaps of money into efforts to shed their fratty image. Remember that? Let's not forget those infamous comments that were made, those characterizations that were made by the new verb or adjective, getting Heinerschieded. But I digress. You're probably aware of the ill-fated partnership, as we talked about today, with a particular influencer. But they just had another one with Harley-Davidson. Budweiser had convinced Harley-Davidson to feature their logo on a can of beer to celebrate Harley-Davidson's 120th anniversary. Now, that timing obviously couldn't have been worse because it coincided with Pride Month, number one, and already Budweiser was embroiled in a controversy, let's say. Now, of course, this led to further backlash. It tainted the Harley-Davidson brand, and their numbers, as far as their value, their stock value, headed downward. Now, some people say that's coincidental because the market was a little unstable and everything else seemed to be headed downward, which is not entirely true, but hey, give them their narrative. It's not a good look when you're entangled in somebody else's controversy, and that's exactly what happened. Of course, then there's this military promotion we talked about, which is like camo-themed cans of Bud Light and Budweiser. And while each case sold actually triggers a $1 donation to Folds of Honor, which is a good group, let me tell you, it's limited to sales between May 31st and July 4th. So it's about a month headed into Independence Day. And the goal there is to try to tug at your heartstrings or guilt you into something. Let me tell you, it would be more valuable to Folds of Honor if you gave them $5 directly and not bought a case of any of these beers. I will say that this particular promotion is a peculiar choice at best when you compare it to the direct support that Bud Light actually gives to Pride events and things like that have been going on. And they just pan them money, but they're making you buy beer. That leads me to question their priorities. You probably agree. I think it's rather strange. I think it's crass. I think it's conniving. Maybe you agree. Maybe all of those adjectives actually apply. I don't know. Grant, do we have any more adjectives to add to this?
Uncultivated.
Crude.
Uncultured.
Tasteless.
Was boorish and juvenile.
Lowbrow. Coarse.
Rude.
Uncouth.
Is that enough for you?
No? Anyway, that's not even the most bizarre way that they're wasting money right now with these special kinds of promotions that border on virtue signaling and, well, otherwise just dive deeper into a controversy, infuriating their customers. But again, we'll get into that in just a second. See, Budweiser has been a prominent sponsor of a sporting event that's globally known, FIFA's World Cup event, and that has been in place since 1986, so a very long time. They have a long-standing agreement here that has undoubtedly sold tons and tons of beer. It's worth, or at least it was worth last year before it got abruptly canceled in a weird way, about $75 million. I would imagine that that's going to double with the Women's World Cup because they're doubling the number of games. So it's worth a lot of money to FIFA to keep this agreement in place. Now, when the event took place in Qatar, you will remember that there was no alcohol. No alcohol was available for sale. And that was strange because FIFA had technically breached their contract with Budweiser. And yet Budweiser chose to renew that sponsorship recently, actually June 8th, I think Thursday of last week. And Budweiser just went ahead and renewed, which is strange. One can only wonder what might hinder sales of beer in the future, because there are other countries out there vying for their opportunity to host this event. And if they can just willy-nilly cast aside FIFA's wishes, then that's not great. And what doesn't help here is that FIFA already has a track record of recorded corruption at various points in time. Many of them recent, many of them criminal. Well, I mean, obviously all corruption should be criminal, but I mean, we're talking millions of dollars in graft, amongst other things. And of course, that's still not what I'm referring to, so stick with me here. We're almost there. What I'm going to reveal about what's happening may shed light on InBev's peculiar actions overall. And again, I've been using that word a lot, peculiar. The word here to focus on is obsolescence. Yeah, you heard that right. To some extent, this may apply to all alcohol brands, not just everything coming out of AB Inbev. It could be everything, not just Bud Light. It could be everything. You see, there's no denying that deliberately marketing to younger audiences was a conscious choice, and that's been happening for a long period of time. If you remember back to the days of Joe Camel and other iconic characters in cigarette ads, you know what I'm talking about. In fact, if you just go back in time and watch some Mad Men from AMC, you probably saw references to advertising to younger folks to be cool and hip. Public awareness around the dangers of smoking grew because of Joe Camel and other things. They could tell that they were marketing to younger people. And so regulations were put in place, laws and very strict control of the things that you could do to target anybody when it came to one of these sins brands of things. So they had to stop marketing or targeting younger people with those tactics. Now, guess what?
Huh? What?
Here's where we get something new. There's no such restrictions right now on new media platforms like TikTok and things like that, which you can inadvertently introduce harmful ideas to kids and teenagers, well, and young adults and adults as well, but obviously the most impressionable people being the young. The use of these influencers to promote various forms of consumption, let's say, has become more than a little bit commonplace. In fact, there are whole brands that use influencers as kind of their one-person marketing team. So the earlier claims about targeting kids weren't unfounded, but now I have the answer as to why, and you're about to find out too. And this is the meat of the story that nobody's talking about. Recent surveys have been released from the University of Michigan and a researcher called Barenberg Research. There you go. And they show that at the tail end of the millennial generation, and obviously the Gen Z generation, they're not fond of beer. They don't like the taste, amongst many other things. And in fact, there are whole scathes of this group, giant proportions of them, just consume alcohol less, to a lesser degree, 20% less, 20% less than previous generations like mine. And shockingly, again, I'm sure they had this knowledge for quite some time, but shockingly, 28% of those generations don't drink at all. Could you imagine having or cutting by a quarter the consumption of alcohol in the next generation? Which is what's happening, especially specifically around beer, that 20%, but 28% on alcohol at all. That's really, really bad news. Now, with sin taxes on the rise, which is happening, in many, many countries, in particular Canada, we'll get there in a second, those sin taxes are going up, specifically with alcohol. And that's not aiding the big beverage industry. Big beverage companies are desperate to attract new customers. Well, who are the new customers? Young people. They've obviously had these numbers for a long time, as I said earlier, before this academic research was completed. And I think now their desperation is seeping into a lot of different forms and strategies. I think you're going to see more and more of this in various ways. So now that you know the truth about the matter, what do you think? I'd like you to share your thoughts down below in the comments section, but it's really important to have this conversation, and it's also really important to share this out. But I'd like to have a spirited conversation. So let's do that. Oh, quick joke. Dad joke of the day.
Not another joke.
What do you call a Bud Light can at a Pride event? Brewed controversy. Haha.
Why are you the way that you are?
Thanks for watching. Be sure to take care of yourself. Take care of others. Wash your hands, of course, because it's good hygiene. And until next time, bye.
Today, be sure you're subscribed and hit that for alerts.
Yay!
Of course, like and share all of the videos that you can, as it helps with the algorithm. Have a great day.